Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 167, recorded September 15th, 2014. Dr. Lawrence Krauss. Triangulation is brought to you by Scott-E-Vest, technology-enabled clothing to carry all your gadgets. Visit scottevest.com/TRI now through September 22nd and save 40% off 10 of their best sellers. That's scottevest.com/TRI. And don't forget to use the code TRI14 at checkout. And by Citrix Go to Assist. Citrix Go to Assist offers a secure, cloud-based solution for IT and customer support professionals, providing live and unattended remote support to their employees and customers working from any computer or mobile device. For a 30-day free trial, visit gotoassist.com. It's time for Triangulation, the show where we get to interview some of the most interesting, provocative, thoughtful people in technology. I'm really excited. I wanted to interview Lawrence Krauss for a long time, and we use this book as an excuse. Lawrence Krauss has written the foreword to a new book, Neil Stephenson. In fact, we should get Neil Stephenson, too. It was his idea. It's a collection of short stories, science fiction short stories. But the manifesto for it, and the name is Hieroglyph, was to reclaim our future. Instead of, what did Neil Stephenson say? No cyberpunks, no Holocaust, no dystopias, just positive futuristic stories. And a great foreword by a physicist, Lawrence Krauss. You, I'm sure, know his name. He's written so many really good books about science and the importance of science in our society. And, of course, many of you probably read his book on the science of Star Trek. Lawrence, it's great to talk to you from his office at the Arizona State University, where he is a professor of physics. So nice to talk to you.
It's good to be here.
Thank you.
Actually, really, it's actually nice to be in my office for a change.
Yeah, what a schedule you keep.
Yeah, it's been something else. And as you can see, I'm actually a Borg.
You have become the future. Congratulations.
Thanks to you, I'm now a Borg. Yes, okay.
But you sound so good, Lawrence.
Thank you.
First of all, I did not realize this, but you, I guess because your wife is Australian, you commute from Australia to Arizona.
Well, yeah. I mean, not every day, but I do. I spend the U.S. summer in Australia, which is actually a good thing if you live in Phoenix.
It's the winter in Australia, though. So.
But given the two, I'd prefer winter in Australia.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Summer. Anyway, and I come back and forth. It's actually
nice.
Quite easy. You just get on a plane. It's not too much of a problem.
That's a good point. We're a little spoiled these days. It's really just
and it's
a 12-hour
nice.
flight.
And I have an beautiful office on a mountain, an observatory at Mount Stromlo in Australia, and it's great. And because of the wonderful world we live in, which probably seemed like science fiction 30 years ago, I can effectively operate in my office here and at the university when I happen to be away, and vice versa. And so it works out well. And sometimes I bring my students there with me. We can intensively work away from the distractions of the university and then come back here. Anyway,
sounds wonderful. Actually,
it isn't bad. It's not bad. So
you get to teach. I mean, you write so much, you talk, you speak so often. In fact, I was on an Eclipse cruise with you a couple of years ago in the Australia area.
Yes.
The cruise, it was a little disappointing, I think, to both of us, because the captain managed to steer himself right under a cloud the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. The only cloud in the Pacific, actually, and at that time, and actually had ample warning to move the ship 100 yards, but decided. I think he was Dutch. I was going to say he was German, maybe, because, he decided. Yeah. And, I could understand if he was German. He picked those coordinates and he wasn't going to move no matter what. But anyway. But I do teach, yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure your students are very fortunate. My son, who's a student at CU Boulder, actually applied to ASU because of you. He really wanted. Yeah, he got in, but I think he decided to go to Boulder for other reasons. Something to do with
pretty place, Boulder. It's very
snow.
nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful location.
Yeah. But you have inspired so many with your writings on science, and yet sometimes I feel like you're a little distraught with the state of scientific understanding in the U.S. today.
A little. It depends on the day. It's unfortunate. We live in this 21st century, which is so remarkable, and we should take joy in the things we've discovered about the universe instead of, on the one hand, well, it's okay, I suppose being ignorant of it is maybe understandable on one hand, but it's worse because people knowingly throw it out, knowingly work to distort it, and of course, as you know, in our country, knowingly work to make sure children don't learn science for fear that it might threaten their faith, and it's so sad to me because we tend to, and in science fiction they use this a little bit too. We tend to glamorize science because of technology.
Yes.
But to me, what makes science so special is actually the cultural thing, the fact that it's changed our perspective of who we are and where we come from, and we don't remember the plumbing of the Greeks, but we do remember their ideas, and I think that those ideas are what are fascinating, and I think people are. Well, I know people are fascinated by it when you actually expose them to it, when you overcome their fears. Here in Arizona at ASU, I run this thing called the Origins Project, which looks at everything from the origins of the universe to the origins of consciousness. And with every one of our scientific meetings, we have a public event, and we get 3,000 members of the public coming in to watch science, because if presented with the possibility, they're fascinated by it. And I think most people are actually fascinated by science, but they don't realize it's science that they're fascinated by. And that's what the usefulness of science fiction is, because they might be fascinated by time travel, but they don't realize it actually connects to the real world of science.
It always amazes me that, I mean, look, the people who watch this network are fascinated by technology. They use it. They love it. Technology to me is science applied. It's what we've learned in physics and material science we apply to technology to make things. And yet sometimes I don't understand how they think an iPod must work. If they think there's angels in there, I'm not sure I understand that. If you reject science, you reject everything that science has brought us.
You make a really good point. It's what people don't realize is that things are connected. They think of science as a set of facts that are not, connected, and you can throw out the ones you don't like, just like people do in the Bible. They throw out the stories they don't like. But science is interconnected. You can't just take one bit and throw it out. So, for example, if you think the world is 6,000 years old, you shouldn't get in your car or fly a plane or use your toaster, because same physics that tells you one works it applies the other. It's not a different stories.
What's the Origins Project? This is something you do at ASU.
It's what brought me to ASU. ASU is a wonderful university, and I'm very happy to be here. It's very entrepreneurial. And what ASU is all about is transdisciplinary ideas. That instead of, as Michael Crow, the president, said when he tried to convince me to come here, is that he couldn't maybe compete with Harvard on its own turf, but he could create a university that wasn't based on 19th century disciplines. The 21st century problems aren't just chemistry, physics. They mix things. We have a biodesign institute that brings together physicists and biologists looking at everything from cancer to DNA sequencing. And the Origins Project is sort of manifests that in a real way. We try and look at foundational questions from the origins of the universe, as I say, through the origins of early modern humans, origins of disease, origins of violence recently. And we bring the best scientists and scholars in the world here for workshops. For example, we had one on the origin of life, and we had not just biologists, but astronomers, planetary scientists, geophysicists, chemists, and these people don't always talk to each other. And we try and look at forefront questions and find out where we can go next. And then, as I say, because I believe strongly not just in generating knowledge, but in disseminating it, with each of those we have panels, which we generally have called the Great Debates, with the best public intellectuals in the world, and our audience here in Phoenix has and around the world have realized it, because we fill it up. To me, to see 3,000 people pay to come to an evening event on science is so gratifying, and we get people now flying in from around the country. I'm just amazed that people come in from the East Coast and drive from the West Coast, and it means that people are craving this stuff, and I find it's for me, it's like being a kid in the candy store, because any interesting scientific idea, we can bring the best people in the world here to talk about. This coming year, we're devoting the whole year to the year of the Anthropocene, which is the sort of the human-induced change in the world, and we're having an event on extinctions, but not the negative aspect of extinctions completely, but extinctions as creative destruction. So what opportunities, everything from biology and biological systems to cultural evolution to actually technology, how technology can become extinct and create new opportunities from, Sony Betamax to whatever. And then we're having another event on the origins of water, again, from water as it's related to habitable planets and the search for life in the universe, which, of course, is a fascinating question that drives everyone, to the question of origin of water and the origin of life on Earth, to the modern questions of water, sea level rise, of climate change, salinity. There's so many fascinating things. So it's great. And we're having we also are initiating a new thing called Dialogues. And the first one will be, I think, January 15th with Alan Alda and me here at the Orpheum Theater in Phoenix. It'll be fun.
Oh, that sounds great.
Alan Alda has been fascinated by is an important scientific communicator in his own right. So it'll be fun to talk.
Absolutely. Together. He does the Scientific American show. So it seems like you like dialogue. You like to get into the hurly-burly of debate.
Well, dialogue rather than debate. I mean, debate is fine if it isn't a formal debate. I've given up doing formal debates because I think they're just rhetorical devices. I'm interested in conveying information.
Yeah.
And a good way to convey information is to have a discussion, like we are now.
Yeah, I agree, but not necessarily of like-minded people.
No, that's important. I think it's important to point out differences and to explore them, and actually to listen. I'm old enough. I was going to say how old I am now, but I'm not going to. But it took me over 50 years to learn how to listen, I think.
Me too. I'm in the same boat.
It is good to get different viewpoints and confront, because again, one of the wonders for me, what science does for me is force me to open my mind, and there's nothing more exciting and enlivening than take something you thought was true and discovering it's not. That's a wonderful thing. It's not a bad thing. It means you're learning. And the process of learning isn't just sort of getting a lecture and copying things down. It's opening your mind. It's learning how to discriminate between fact and fancy, and forcing your beliefs to conform to the evidence of reality rather than the other way around. I tell students here that what I hope for every student at some point in their university career is that they have some idea that is cherished. There's some notion that it's at the very core of their being, proved to be wrong, because that's what learning, and for me, what science is all about in my scientific career. I mean, if you compare my view of the universe now to what I thought it was 30 years ago, it's amazing how many things have changed. And no matter any idea, no matter how elegant or beautiful, if it doesn't correspond to nature, we throw it out like yesterday's newspaper.
We're talking to Lawrence Krauss. He's a professor of physics at Arizona State University, author of so many wonderful books on physics, and I highly recommend you just to visit Amazon or your local bookstore.
Yeah, we could mention their names, like the physics of Star Trek, or even the more recent one, A Universe from Nothing. There we go. We got that.
I like A Universe from Nothing, and I love the idea of that, because that is one of the problems I think that people have with modern physics, is it seems that the Big Bang emerged from nothing.
Yeah,
how could that be?
Exactly. The biggest mystery of science. You know what? I'm going to close. I realize my door is open.
Close the door.
You can't hear the noise, but I can. So
no, please do.
Listen. Okay, hold on.
We're going to now demonstrate an interview from nothing. While Lawrence Krauss is closing his door, let me take a little break to show you my new clothes. I am thrilled to say we have free clothing for not for everyone, just for me. My Scott E vest. I went to the Niners game yesterday, as some of you know. And of course I was wearing my Scott E vest because why? Well, because whenever you go on a flight, in fact, Lawrence, when you fly those long flights, you got to have your Scott E vest for you. Anybody who has phones, iPods, gadgets, I'm riding the bus to the ball game, and I need pockets. And of course, you're going to go through security even at the ball game now. It's really nice to have your pockets for all your stuff. You just take off the jacket, you put it through security, and you're golden. It's a beautiful thing. You can always tell the pro travelers they're wearing Scott E vest as they travel. It's not designed. No, my friends. It's engineered with not just lots of pockets, but Scott's patented personal area network. Because what happens is, let's say you have And it's nice, finally, Scott has started to put icons on his jacket. And so you know, okay, the iPod goes there, and then you can actually, the wiring can go up through the jacket. There's room for the headphones to come out. In fact, wearing Scotty Vest clothing is a journey in exploration. You find, I've had stuff I've had for years, and there's a pocket there. What? I didn't know there was a pocket there. They have sold over 10 million pockets as part, not just the pockets by themselves, but of course as part of the great Scott E-Vest clothing. Stuff, places to keep for travel. There's nothing better to keep your cash, your gadgets, your important documents safe. Scott E-Vest even has a pickpocket guarantee. I love wearing my Scott E-Vest as I travel. I've never been robbed in the Scott E-Vest, but should you get robbed, they'll reimburse you up to $1,000 if you're pickpocketed while wearing your Scott E-Vest. People are always telling me, oh, Leo, you shouldn't go to Buenos Aires wandering around in the middle of the night in Buenos Aires or wherever. And I've never, ever been robbed, and I travel like crazy, but I'm always wearing Scott E-Vest. Look at that. Did you see how I did that? I pulled that right out of the pouch. In some of the items they have, if you're worried about spying, RFID blocking pockets. Now, sometimes, I'll give you an example of why you might want that. Your passport, the new American passports, and I bet in many countries too, have RFID in the passport. And we have shown that people can sniff it as you walk by. You don't want to be, walking down a dark alley in the middle of the night and somebody says, there goes an American passport. That doesn't seem like a good idea. So put it in the RFID blocking pocket. Scott E-Vest is having a big sale right now. I want you to go to Scott E-Vest to take advantage of their 40% off sale on 10 of their best-selling items. You go to scottevest.com/TRI. That's SCOTTEVEST.com/TRI. And take a look at, I'm wearing the Tropiformer jacket. They've got the beautiful tech shirt there, the pack jacket. That I carry with me at all times, the pack jacket.
I'm wearing that right now.
It's a nice jacket, but it's also, you can pack it. Lucy, they have stuff for, look at that. Look, you look good.
This is what
I saw the one you wore yesterday on Twitter. The trim matched your hair.
Wasn't
it was beautiful.
that trim amazing? That was what you're wearing now, just in a different color.
Just gorgeous.
The pack jacket is a little bit lighter.
And it packs up into a small little pouch you put in your suitcase.
It does. It's kind of a great emergency jacket that has all the Scotty Vest technology.
I took it to Machu Picchu.
Ooh.
Because I knew it might rain at Machu Picchu, and I had my pack jacket. Hidden cargo pants. They have ladies' clothes, too. The Lucy cardigan is on sale. But you got to use the promo code TRI14, TRI14. So this is confusing. You get 40% off with the offer code TRI14. Okay, not 40. You get 40% off, but the offer code is 14. TRI14. Remember that, okay? Only until September 22nd if you need some more numbers. Thank goodness everybody watching is into numbers because of the physicists, right? Yeah. If you're watching or listening to this late and you missed the sale, do check them out anyway and use the code, because Scott, you know what? He's got a bad habit. He forgets to turn off the promo codes. Sometimes. Not always. I can't promise it. He's going to turn off September 22nd, but they also have other great deals for the Twit Army and different sale items daily for 20% off. ScottEvest.com/TRI. Use the code TRI14 at checkout. By the way, Scott's celebrating his 50th birthday soon. Happy birthday. We can't come out to your birthday party. We're traveling that day. But you are going to have a blast, and we wish you all the best. Happy birthday. Happy 50th, Scott. And everybody, get 40% off for his 50th birthday using the offer code TRI14. Go through September 22nd. All right. Lawrence Krauss is back.
Oh, it didn't take long to close my door.
I did a commercial while you were gone.
I missed the commercial. It was my chance to do email. Okay.
So let's talk about nothing. What was before the Big Bang? What?
There are many answers to that question, but the simplest one is it's not a good question.
Well, I got the bad question out of the way.
I mean, the reason I wrote that book is the idea that we can get 100 billion galaxies, each containing 100 billion stars. When there wasn't anything to begin with, that seems to require some divine intervention. And what's amazing is, given what we know about the laws of physics now, it doesn't require that. But the reason before the Big Bang might not be a good question is that as I describe in the book, it's quite possible, indeed plausible, that our entire universe spontaneously popped into existence from nothing. That's all of space, but it's also time, because in general relativity, space and time are connected. So if space emerged from nothing, it could be that time emerged from nothing. There literally was no before. Time made no sense. And of course, if that's the case, we have to change a lot of our views, because everything we think of about cause and effect involves a before and after. And we don't have a full theory of quantum gravity yet, but we realize that we may have to change the way we think, and that's okay. Some people get upset that science, as I've just described in my book, sort of redefines nothing to be something from which something can arise. And some people say, well, that's not my definition of nothing. And I say, that's fine, but I don't care, because, science changes the definition of things. As I point out, it's called learning.
Yeah. Amazing.
But what is it, if you ask, what are the characteristics of a universe that could have come from nothing without any supernatural shenanigans? Our universe has precisely those characteristics. And so that doesn't prove it, because we don't have a theory of quantum gravity, but it makes it plausible, and that plausibility is worth celebrating. That seeming miracle that you can get matter from no matter, that the entire energy of the universe can be precisely zero, is amazing. Now, it doesn't answer the question, is there something other than our universe? Is our universe part of something larger? Did it pop into existence from something else? And I talk about that in the book, and it could be, we think now, that there may be something called a multiverse, which may have an infinite number of universes in it. And that may be eternal and pre-existing, and could be that there is some global time, and there are universes being created right now and other ones dying. So there may be a global time, and our universe may just have arisen 13.8 billion years ago. But that doesn't, in some sense, that multiverse, by the way, plays the role of God, because some people think of God as something outside our universe that's eternal. But we didn't invent it because we needed that solace. The laws of physics seem to be driving us to it. In fact, since I wrote the book, there's been a wonderful discovery. Actually, I've got the cover article in Scientific American, which will come out the day after tomorrow, I guess, is on an amazing discovery that was made 5 months ago now, which may or may not be right, of gravitational waves from the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And as I point out in the book, if those are really there, if that observation is really gravitational waves from the Big Bang, then it pretty well implies there must be other universes out there. And that turns metaphysics into physics, and I find that it blows my mind.
We live in such interesting times, because at the same time as there is an assault on science, there's also amazing science being done. Big science, too, like the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah, in fact, exactly. It is an incredibly exciting time. And it's communicating that excitement that I want to do. We not only did the public pay for this, so we owe it to the public to explain what's going on, but these are some of the most exciting ideas that humans have ever come up with. And what amazes me is, well, there's two things that amaze me. One, that somehow people figure you can't be interested in science or even understand or appreciate it if you're not a scientist. But, they don't say that about music. You don't have to be Mozart to appreciate Mozart. You don't have to be Picasso to appreciate art, or Shakespeare to appreciate drama. And it's the same with science. We can all appreciate the beauty of those ideas. And by the same token, people often say, they ask me, what's the utility of learning about gravitational waves from the Big Bang? And I say, nothing except understanding where we came from. And somehow people want scientific ideas to always have utility. They always want it to turn into technology. But it's those ideas themselves that change our picture of ourselves. And I'm quite proud of the fact that the research I do has no practical use whatsoever. Because
more than a great symphony does, or exactly. a beautiful painting. I mean, that's...
Exactly. Now, it's true that science down the road, even esoteric things, can become practical. In fact, as I talk about and I've written about, I won't be able to, in Los Angeles, where I'm leaving after this interview, I wouldn't be able to get from the airport to where I'm going without GPS, but I couldn't use GPS if it weren't for general relativity and special relativity. Those esoteric things actually are built in those GPS receivers, which would go out of sync in about 3 seconds if we didn't incorporate that. So even esoteric ideas in science can find practical value, but that's not the reason to do it. The reason to do it is because we want to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Back to the physics of Star Trek. there's so many directions. One thing that you said on the cruise that kind of blew my mind is that we are close to knowing everything.
Did?
Did you say that? Maybe not you. Maybe it wasn't you.
If I did, then I was dreaming.
You take it back?
No,
We've made great strides.
We make great strides, but I suspect and I thoroughly hope there's a lot more about the universe we don't understand than we do.
I must have misunderstood you, because that was shocking to me, too.
Yeah, that gives job security to a physicist like me, who's a lot more to learn. But it's more than that.
You're not going to pack up your bags and say, we're done, we got it, we're over, we'll go home.
I can't imagine that's ever going to happen. Maybe it will someday, but, there may be an ultimate theory of everything. But, or as Richard Feynman said, it could just be like a cosmic onion. We just keep peeling back layers. But it's the learning, it's the exploring, it's knowing more today than we knew yesterday, and being surprised. Every day I wake up and I'm surprised if I'm not surprised. Basically, that's what we couldn't do. That's why sort of science differs from science fiction in another way. We couldn't. The universe, the imagination of the universe is much greater than the imagination of human, either scientists or writers. And if we wrote down the best possible science just based on introspection and revelation, we'd come up with a picture of the universe that would pale in comparison to the real universe, because it keeps surprising us. That's why we keep having to open up new windows, keep doing experiments, because common sense is not a guide to what is out there. We have to force our common sense to revise, again, to accommodate the strange and wonderful things. The universe, the expansion of the universe is speeding up over time. It's getting faster and faster and faster. There's a kind of cosmic anti-gravity. Most of the energy of the universe resides in empty space. You take a region of space and you get rid of all the particles and the radiation and everything, and it still weighs something. I mean, who would have thought of that?
I know who said it. It wasn't you. It was Michio Kaku said it.
Oh, well, Michio Kaku is wrong about so many things.
He thinks we're close to a unified field theory.
Well, he may think that, but he's wrong.
I love it.
Like most futurists. By the way, futurists are generally wrong.
Yeah.
Because people often ask me, what's the next great breakthrough? And I say, if I knew, I'd be doing it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
you don't. Your goal is not to predict the future by any means. Your goal is to study and see what we got. See
where we're going. I tend to try. If I'm going to predict the future, it's 2 trillion years from now. I'm happy. I'm comfortable doing that for 2 reasons. One, it's simpler, and 2, no one will be around to check to see whether I got it wrong. So.
Well, we know the sun's going to go out. Are we going to? I mean, at some point, the universe ends. There won't be. Will there be another Big Bang after that, or what happens then?
Well, don't know. At this point, it looks like the universe is going to end with a whimper rather than a bang. The universe will expand faster and faster and faster. All the galaxies we now see will disappear from our horizon, and we'll be left with our single galaxy in what appears to be an infinite, empty void. The stars in our galaxies will burn out, and it will become cold, dark, and empty, and that's the future as far as we can tell. But
now I know why people hate scientists.
No, but it's like Charles Dickens, though. It's the future as it might be. Because we don't know for certain, because it turns out the future is governed by this energy of empty space, and remarkably and wonderfully, we don't have the slightest idea why that energy is there, and we don't understand it at all. And until we understand it, we won't be able to say ultimately with great certainty anything about the future. So I often say, if you're a theoretical physicist, the 2 most exciting states to be in are either confused or wrong, and I'm usually both. And I think that that's what's exciting. We don't understand. Maybe some young kid watching this program will eventually understand the nature of dark energy, but we don't understand it, and it's okay not to understand things. That's another thing I like to try and tell parents and teachers. It's okay when a kid asks a question to say, we don't know. Let's try and find out. And because really science is the process of questioning rather than answering. And I think we could teach science much more effectively in schools if kids realize the very questions that interest them are actually the things we worry about.
I really like this because I really when I quail when I hear futurists. It feels like they want to tell a story about the future, and there's such an amazing story happening right under our noses right now. The amazing things that we're learning about our universe are so awe-inspiring. I can't imagine why you'd need anything else.
Exactly. Why do you need all the garbage when the real universe is so fascinating?
It's incredible.
And if someone comes to you or says they're a futurist, that's a good time to read your email or go do something. Because
no one knows.
These people claim it's just ridiculous. And science fiction for some people, tries to imagine a future, but the science fiction writers of note recognize that it's not likely to be the future we live in.
Yeah.
It's just a possibility. And look, the real universe is about possibilities too, as is science fiction. The difference is that the real universe we're constrained to the possibilities of the real universe. In science fiction, they're not. And I think in the foreword of the book, of this hieroglyph book, I quoted Richard Feynman, who said, "Science is imagination in a straitjacket," which to me is what it's all about. It's really easy to imagine anything. It's much harder to imagine something that it might actually be real.
This is, by the way, a wonderful book. And we have many, I would say everybody who partakes of our network is a science fiction fan. We talk about science fiction a lot. This is a collection of short stories called Hieroglyph. Neil Stephenson was the inspiration for it. We love him. And, of course, Lawrence Krauss wrote the foreword. And one of the things you debunk in the foreword, which I like, and I'm guilty of disseminating this myth that scientists are inspired by science fiction, sometimes even to invent things like the flip phone because they saw it on Star Trek. We're working on the tricorder now, right?
Well, there were some. The flip phone, in fact, was probably designed because it was seen on Star Trek. But there are very few things where there's that kind of causal relationship. Science fiction it is often wrong because, the real world surprises us. And when there is a connection between science and science fiction, it's often not causal. It's just, as I like to say, it's creative people thinking about solutions to problems. And it's not too surprising that creative people can come up with solutions. So, in Star Trek, they imagine, the tricorder, as you point out, what better way to try and understand what's wrong with a person than, instead of opening them up. But that was before ultrasound or MRI or CAT scanning. So doctors and scientists have the same idea. It's good to try and diagnose people without opening them up, but in the real world, we have to actually invent ways to do it instead of just producing a little box. And so what the connection between science and science fiction, I think, is not causal. It's inspirational.
Yeah.
It's that just as I think science can inspire people, science fiction can inspire people, and in fact, fiction can inspire people. And as I said in the foreword, in the Physics of Star Trek, Stephen Hawking wrote the foreword for that book, said science fiction helps inspire the human imagination. It's true of any good fiction, but I think science fiction in particular. So, of course, when I was a kid, I was fascinated by science fiction. Now, is my interest in science, does it derive from my fascination with science fiction, or does my fascination with science fiction derive from my interest in science? It's hard to say. It's a chicken and egg kind of thing. But you know what? If I had to say, I would say, if there was one direction, I would say science inspires science fiction a lot more than science fiction inspires science. And I think in some sense that's characteristic of the stories in this book. They're trying to they're just beyond the present. They're inspired by what's going on in science today to think about what might happen next.
Do you still read science fiction?
Not a lot. I mean, obviously, I read the stories in this book. I find the reading about the real universe just much more fascinating. So
yeah,
I used to read. I used to read a lot of science fiction, and now I don't have much time for fiction in general anymore. Right. I actually tend to. What's interesting is before I write a book, a nonfiction book, I tend to read fiction. I think maybe to inspire my writing. I don't know. So that's the odd time when I'll pick up fiction, be it science fiction or something else. So I'll pick it up every now and then. But I'm not. Even though because of the physics of Star Trek, people think I'm a science fiction addict, and I'm not. I enjoy good science fiction, like I enjoy good fiction. But it's but really the real universe is, as I say, is for me more fascinating. And I, given the limited time I have, I try and read about reality, if I can.
And nowadays, reality somewhat sounds like science fiction with the Higgs boson. I want to talk a little bit. You did the best job of explaining what that meant and what it means, and of course, it's close to your field of dark matter. So,
well, it's yeah. I mean, it's a subject actually so important that I wrote about it in the Times and a few other things, and I've actually, in some sense, it's the heart of a new book I'm writing, which will go beyond a universe or nothing, from the large scale to looking at questions of why are we here instead of why is there something rather than nothing. And the discovery of the Higgs boson is the capstone of one of the greatest intellectual adventures that humanity has ever taken, and we should celebrate it. It says something remarkable. It says that there's this invisible background of this field permeating all of space that we can't see, and it's here by a cosmic accident, but it's responsible for our existence. One more bit of evidence that there's no purpose or design to the universe, that we're here as an accident, so just get over it.
Lawrence Krauss is our guest. He's director of the Origins Project at the Arizona State University, a science writer, a scientist himself, and wrote the foreword for this new book of science fiction short stories about visions for a better future. No dystopia in here. It's called Hieroglyph, and boy, Rudy Rucker, Neil Stevenson, Bruce Sterling, Cory Doctorow, David Brin, Elizabeth Bear, some of my favorite writers in this book. It's great short stories if you like science fiction.
They're not all, I should say that they're not all, mom and apple pie stories. It's not as if there are some stories in here that are pretty creepy.
Yeah, that's right. Not just happy stuff. Hieroglyph is the name of it. We'll have more with Lawrence Krauss in just a moment. Want to tell you a little bit about something from Citrix. We talk about Citrix products a lot. They're so great. And I don't think we've mentioned Citrix Go to Assist in a while. I hope you know about Go to Assist. If you don't, you ought to. If you're in IT or you're doing customer support, you need to know about Go to Assist, the #1 global market leader in remote support. Managing your company's IT support needs not easy. You have my deepest sympathy, especially if you have remote or mobile employees. You got those urgent tech support requests. You got to handle them. You got to get it done. And of course, nowadays, security. You got to keep your network security all the way up, turned to 11. That's why we use and recommend Citrix Go to Assist, the #1 global market leader in remote support. It's cloud-based and gives you all the tools you need to get the job done, including, of course, remote support, live and unattended, which is nice. Remote support to any computer or mobile device. You can screen share with employees. That reassures them often. I do this with my mom. I'll fire up Go to Assist. She says, I just love watching you mouse around. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. It helps her see what I'm doing and know what I'm doing, and she can give me feedback in a little chat screen or on the phone. And, of course, you can use Go to Assist apps to deliver support anytime, anywhere, not just from your computer, but to your iPhone, your iPad, and your Android device. Very easy to use, sets up in less than a minute, whether you're supporting one person like your mom or 10 employees or even 1,000. If you work in IT, you gots to try Go to Assist. It is the best remote support, the service desk, the mobile device support. It's just fabulous. Try it for 30 days free. I love this change management, by the way. This is always an issue. What has happened to this machine? You can keep track of what's been going on. And if you're pushing out hot fixes, and you can keep track of those in the release manager. They got lots of tools, all in the cloud, all easy to use. Visit gotoassist.com, click on the Try It Free button now. And after your free trial, if you purchase Go to Assist before October 31st, use our special code, GoToAssist3030, and you'll get 30% off the monthly rate. Now, that's a good deal. We didn't even put that on the screen. 30% off the monthly rate if you buy before Halloween. Go to Assist 3030. Go to Assist 3030 for that deal. That is a good deal. It's kind of a secret. Our guest is Lawrence Krauss, physicist, author. All right, I'm going to give you the books here because Lawrence wants me to give you A Universe from Nothing. Before that, Quantum Man, the story of Richard Feynman, who I love Feynman's writings. Of course, he did a lot of writing himself.
Inspired. I mean, one of the reasons I write books is that I was inspired as a young person by scientists writing about science, from Albert Einstein, Isaac Asimov, and certainly Richard Feynman, who was an inspiration to many of us. And so I was kind of honored when they asked me to consider writing a book about the science of Richard Feynman in terms of making it a scientific biography. And it wasn't an easy task. I figured it'd be exciting because I could read all of his papers and really work through it. But I'm very pleased with the outcome in the end. It was a labor of love, but it was wonderful.
Quantum Man. You know, it's funny now that you mention it. I grew up reading not science fiction, sure, but a lot of science. George Gamow.
George Gamow was great.
I read every one of his books as a kid, and they totally inspired me.
Me too, exactly. George Gamow, and he's underappreciated. He was a great scientist. He could have won at least 2 Nobel Prizes for
very much involved in quantum mechanics,
and also the Big Bang. He was basically a person who helped realize how to see if there was a Big Bang. And I think he was taken less seriously because he liked to popularize and also write some science fiction too. But and it's unfortunate because there was an era of people who tried to popularize are taken less seriously. And I think Carl Sagan helped change that a little bit. And anyway, I popularized because for me, as I say, I'm returning the favor. Maybe some young kid will read my work and be inspired to become a scientist, and as I was, and it's fun, and so I don't really care whether people take me less serious. I like to think that my science stands on its own, so I don't have to worry about it.
Do you think Gamow is out of date? I mean, 1, 2, 3 Infinity was written in 1947. Do you think he's out of date at this point?
Well, there's some things that are dated, but I go back to it and look at it.
I love that book.
I think quantum mechanics is as mysterious now as when he first wrote about it. I mean, we've learned a lot, and we're actually doing experiments that allow us to illuminate the weirdness of quantum mechanics, quantum teleportation, maybe quantum computers. In fact, Feynman was one of the first people to think about quantum computers, and the reason he did it, he said, was so we could understand quantum mechanics. And here's the guy who helped develop it, because quantum mechanics is so strange that we really can't get an intuitive picture of it. We can understand the mathematics of it, we can make predictions, but it's because we grow up as classical human beings, we don't have that intuition. And so Gamow and other people who try and sort of point out quantum weirdness, that's as modern now as it was when he wrote it.
Yeah. Oh, man. I got it for my kids, so I don't know if they really appreciate it, but they did get a love for science, so I'm happy that
well, that's
something.
Good. Then you're doing, as my friend Steve Weinberg says, you're doing God's work, and he's an atheist just like me.
So that's really confusing, actually.
Yeah. Anytime I confuse you, I'm doing my job.
Well, one of the things, okay, debunk this for me, because one of the things that strikes me is that modern physics really is math. And, you say we're classical human beings, we're humanists. It's hard for us to understand something that is only expressed in a formula. We want a picture, a metaphor, we want some sort of symbology that we can get.
Well, we can, you're right. But, I wrote a book, one of my books, Fear of Physics, and I'm going to elaborate on it at some point in the future, points out that, we tend to think of math as a handicap, but it's actually, like baggage, it can be useful. The trouble is we learn mathematics from mathematicians, which is awful, because in physics, numbers mean a whole different thing, right. and they allow us to get a kind of intuition that we wouldn't get otherwise. You're absolutely right that at the forefront of science, we need math. And when I read a popular book, I don't use math. So I'm always compromised at some level. But math leads to pictures. And pictures are good approximations. I think pictorially when I'm doing my science, before I do math, I think I tend to visualize it. It depends on the individual. Some people think in terms of equations. I tend to think of things in a very physical way and then find the appropriate mathematics.
How interesting.
And it just that there's a long history of that too. Michael Faraday.
Einstein worked that way. Wasn't he visual?
Well, yes, probably. But I don't want to make any comparisons between myself and Einstein. So thank you very much.
I will. I'll do it for you, Lawrence. No,
thank you.
But it always amazes me that somebody can do thought experiments or just stare into space and think about this stuff.
But we all do it. We all do it at some level, and it's fun. We all do thought experiments. You do a thought experiment when you're crossing the street. You look at a bus coming, and you do the thought experiment. Well, let me see. If I walk out at this speed, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah, that's true.
And so we're all doing science at some level, and thought experiments are fun. They sometimes are confusing, but that's the other thing that frustrates me is people, when it comes to science, people don't want to think. It's like
thinking is hard, Lawrence.
No, but it's fun. As a writer, I try not to read reviews, but let me give you an example. So, say in the New Yorker or some well-known humanist kind of journal, you'll read a review of an economics book by, say, in the old days, John Kenneth Galbraith or whatever, and the guy will go on for pages and pages and pages talking about the stuff as if they understand it. But a science book, good review is, it boggled my mind. and so can you imagine someone writing a review of John Kenneth Galbraith saying, that was a fascinating book, but I didn't understand any of it. And we allow ourselves to that out when it comes to science. But if we're trying to read political science or history or economics or any of those things, psychology, where we say, no, we have to puzzle through it. If this guy is trying to explain it to me, I want to puzzle through it. Well, I think the same is true of science. We can puzzle through things. Sometimes it's hard, but it's worth it.
It boggled my mind. You know, to be honest, the economics also boggles my mind. So
It should. I just came from Europe. I was in China at the World Economic Forum, and every time I'm at an economic forum, anyway.
I'm just a physicist. I don't understand the science of economics.
Let's not call economics a science, shall we? It's a disservice to the it's a certain disservice to the rest of science.
I agree.
So let's not talk about economics.
I'm glad to hear you're updating Fear of Physics, because that's one of your first books.
It's an early book of mine, and I've updated once, but I think I'm gonna do a kind of different take on it after this next book, which will be.
Tell me about the next book. It's about the Higgs boson, or?
Well, it's about. I never want to talk about my next books till they're done, but I'll give you a title. It's called, which again I don't think I have done in public, but it's called The Greatest Story Ever Told So Far.
Oh, you're so mean. You had to put the dig in, didn't you?
Yeah, but it's about as I say, it takes off from a universe of nothing, and looks instead of looking outside, it looks within. And it's a wonderful story that I'm very excited about, and it's a story, and science is a wonderful story, and I'm hoping to get people excited and put the modern developments in context, and as I say, try and address those kind of questions. As I say, the universe of nothing addressed why is there something rather nothing. And in some sense, I want to address the question, why are we here? Which is another pseudo-religious question. And take it away from religion, which doesn't add anything. And
I'll tell you some myths. I'll tell you some stories that makes you feel better.
Yeah, that's the point. If you want myths to make you feel better, I understand it. But you know, one of the things I say, and people, sometimes I'm hesitant to say it, but it's true, is one of the purposes of science is to make us uncomfortable. Because it's only if we're uncomfortable that we're learning, that we're opening our minds. If we don't want to open our minds, we'll always be comfortable. We can stare at our navels and go forever. Mm-hmm. But part of the joy of living is to learn, is to expose yourself to new things, you know. And there's a magnet. I hate kind of trite sayings, but there's a magnet on our house in Australia that I put on from stepdaughter. It says, you know, it's an old saying that a ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for.
Oh, I like it. That's beautiful. Yeah. It strikes me you're a brave person. Any physicist is a brave person in a way that some people aren't, because you're willing to do it's hard to think about this stuff. It's hard to confront the unknown. It's hard to sail that ship out into the harbor, and you have to have a certain boldness of mind and spirit. Did you have that sense that you were being brave? Was there a leap of faith that you had to make, that I'm going to do this, or does it just come naturally?
Well, I think.
Well, you have to teach your brain muscle to work that way.
Oh, I mean, science has trained me to be able to accept being wrong and to realize that.
That's something people don't do.
But I think I do science because I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, some people pretend they're trying to save the world and they become scientists, but we become scientists because it's fun and it's something we're good at, and so. I never thought of it as brave. I thought of it as exciting.
Yeah.
And some people call me brave. I don't think I'm particularly brave. So I mean, the brave people are going to fight Ebola
that's brave.
It takes some intellectual bravery, I guess, to be able to open your mind and go to new places. But it's exciting.
Well, your joy and enthusiasm and love of it really is communicated, and I think that's probably the most important communication you make. Maybe isn't the factual stuff or the information. It's this joy, this love of not knowing, of curiosity, of wanting to know, and that's a wonderful thing to communicate.
That's the thing I got from Gamow, and it's the thing I got from Feynman, and I want to convey it. And I talk to teachers a lot, and I often say to them, the two things I tell teachers. One is, biggest mistake a teacher can make is assuming their students are interested in what they have to say. Because you've got to convince them it's interesting. But also, many teachers are afraid to convey their own enthusiasm. But if you're not excited about stuff, how can you expect students to be excited?
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I feel about communicating with the public. If I can't show why I find it fascinating, then I can't expect anyone else to be interested in it.
This is one way to start with fiction, but really inspiring great science fiction. Hieroglyph is the new book. It is published by William Morrow and the foreword by our guest, Lawrence Krauss. I see that Dr. Krauss is also going to be doing a Google Hangout tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon in conjunction with PBS Arizona, In Space and Time with Dr. Lawrence Krauss. Why does it say the return of Dr. Krauss?
I did one before. I do a monthly science update on Arizona PBS, which I'll do tomorrow afternoon. And what they've just introduced, starting a couple of months ago, is afterwards I do an interactive hangout where we can ask questions, and that's been really fun. I love that. I mean, the questions are exciting. And actually, as I say, I don't know if it's sold out. I think it is, but tonight, Neil Stephenson and I are doing an event in L.A.
Cool.
on science and science fiction, so related to the book. So it'll be neat.
Well, we love Neil. He is a very inspiring, exciting author. And
well, he was one of the reasons I agreed to do this, because I won't mention names, but I divide science fiction writers into those people who I like and those I don't, and those people who have pretense for what science fiction is and what it isn't. And Neil's on the right side of that, and I'm really happy that he's spending time here at ASU, and I had him at one of our Origins events, actually, on storytelling and science, and it was great. We had me and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Greene and Bill Nye and Richard Dawkins and Neil Stephenson all on stage at the same time. It was quite a. You can watch it online. I mean, all of our events are archived. It's kind of amazing.
That's on the ASU website, the Origins Project?
Or www.origins.asu.edu.
Excellent.
And we have our own YouTube channel. You can go, and all of our events are actually filmed in high def with 3 cameras and then edited and produced as really nice finished pieces. In fact, the production company, the directors of that were so good that we got them involved in this new movie, which is also, I guess I'll also plug, which just came out on Netflix, but also iTunes and Amazon, called The Unbelievers. It follows me and Richard Dawkins around. And these young guys who produced our Origins events were so impressive that we did a movie with them, and I kind of like it. I don't know if people. No,
it's on my list. I can't wait to see it. Actually, I'm also a huge fan of Richard Dawkins.
Oh yeah, and it's fun. It's kind of what they wanted to make was a rock and roll tour film about science. A lot of people don't get the idea, but they'd seen Richard and me in this sort of big sort of like rock concert environment, and they know it's also a grind, and they wanted to follow us. So a lot of people think it's something it isn't, but I think they captured it, and we got a few friends, minor celebrities who are interested in science to be in it. People like Woody Allen and Cameron Diaz. Some people have heard of them.
Nice to have some superstars. The Unbelievers is also online. All of this is available at unbelieversmovie.com. It's on Amazon, on iTunes, and as you mentioned, everywhere. Yeah, there you go.
Got that up. Look at that. Your technology is amazing.
Speed of light, Lawrence.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how fast it works.
we got to have you back. Wonderful to talk to you. So inspiring, and thank you for being here. We'll let you get on that plane to Los Angeles for your event with Neil Stephenson. Everybody should get Hieroglyph from William Morrow. Great stories in here, and a really good foreword by that guy, Lawrence Krauss.
Well,
thank you, Dr. Krauss.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was a lot more fun than I thought it would be.
He was dreading it. I could tell.
Okay.
Take care, Lawrence. Bye-bye. We do Triangulation every Monday morning. You see why I like to start the week this way? This is such a great way to start the week. 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You're invited to join us. Thanks to the Sandman in the chat room who told me about the Google Hangout. I get great questions, inspiration from the chat room during the live show. So please, if you can, watch live. But, 11 a.m. Pacific, I know on Monday, maybe not your first place to be on the internet. That's okay. We got on-demand audio and video always of everything we do after the fact at twit.tv, in this case, twit.tv/TRI. We put it on the YouTube, youtube.com/triangulation. And, of course, you can always subscribe in iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts from, because we put that out there, too. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Triangulation. Bye-bye.